Recording in progress.
Okay, good morning. Today we're going to look at the final material for scientific communication class. We're going to talk about how we prepare our curriculum vitae and statement of purpose that is usually used for us to apply for a position, whether it's a position for a graduate studies or a position for a certain work or jobs or activities. And also it becomes a way of communicating the thing that's we already done in terms of our past work or our past research or our past experience on dealing with something that is in accordance with the requirement of the following institution that requires applicants to do their work. And so let us begin. So in this case, it's about telling about ourselves. Okay, about sometimes we need to make an effort to sell yourself, such as for applying for a job or applying for graduate studies, as I mentioned earlier. There are three components that can help you in getting the position that we want to have. The first one is the curriculum vitae, which is a summary of our life story, but it is not quite actually a life story from our birth, but actually in terms of the experience and also the educational background that we have that in accordance with the competencies that they're looking for. And then, curriculum vitae, statement of purpose, and also a letter of recommendation are basically similar in terms of showing the institution that we apply for, about ourselves, about the qualification that we have, or about the certain experience that we have, but the approaches are different. So if it's in curriculum vitae, the approach was just like we are telling our own story, our life story, whereas in statement of purpose, we basically tell the institution about ourselves, but in a way that we looking at for our future goals or aims related to that position. And also for letter recommendation is about how others perceive you. So because letter of recommendation usually written by your advisor or someone who knew about you, knew about your past experience in the university or in your previous workplace that have high regard of you. So so letter recommendation usually written by those of you who knew about you and have the best opinion about yourself. So you don't want to have, for example, a professor or a supervisor who didn't knew about you at all, he or she just knew about you from the lecture that you take, and so there is not it is not enough for him to prepare some background information that is relevant to the institution. And then the first two of the above is in your control. So curriculum vitae and statement of purpose are the things that we can write ourselves, whereas the letter of recommendation is the thing that is written by other people about ourselves. Typical curriculum vitae usually consists of names, address, and then the ways of communication, such as telephone number or emails, etc., and so on. And then listing the educational background, work history, and if you are applying for a research position, usually they ask also the list of publication or recent publications. and also selected invite talks and presentation. Preparing a CV for, and then we need to prepare CV not only to apply for a certain job. Sometimes we also need it for applying for a research proposal, a scholarship for graduate studies, and obviously a job application. So curriculum vitae is basically a concise summary of a person's educational and professional experience, also called a resume. Okay, so in other terms, it also called as a resume or biographical sketch, bio sketch, biography, biodata, etc., and so on. And the content of a CV usually includes education, background, and then employment history, and then honor and award, and then affiliation, publication, service to profession, and other information that is required, obviously from the institution. So from a advertisement, for example, or from announcement in the website, in the institution website, for example, they listing the thing that they're looking for, and then must be included on the CV, and you must show them in the CV itself. If you have no prior experience in working, but you have internship experience, then you may include them into the employment history, even though it is not a permanent position. If you have, for example, an experience in working in an industry for 1 or 2 years, or etc., and so on, or even you have past experience in working in your own company, then you may also include them in the employment history. And then, okay, so we've seen the content, a typical content for a CV, but for research proposal, okay, for research proposal, CV is usually used in order to look at the background or look at the competencies of one applicant. It's basically to convince the people who will granting you the money for your research that you have the enough skills, educational background, and experience, so that uh, so that the people who is evaluating your CV know about your work history, and also they have the confidence to pick you up because they knew that you can solve a certain problem, and then they knew that you are responsible in handling the money, and also responsible in terms of publishing the required outputs that they require. Okay, so carefully follow all instruction about CV, because usually one institution is different with another. What we need to do is to include all required information, and then adhere to page limits and formatting requirement, and then do not include personal information that is unrelated to your ability to the research proposed. So this is the format for CV for research proposal. So you don't include your personal information that is unrelated to what they are asking for. So for example, your marital status or age of date of birth, and then how many dependents that you have, how many children that you have, and then what is the health condition. Okay, so these is unnecessary if you are applying for a certain research proposal. However, you must take note that some company do require the information about whether you have a driver's license, for example, or you are married or not, etc., and so on, because they may look for people who are willing to work in remote places, right? So therefore, So therefore, if you're able to and you are willing to give that information to the company, then you may do so because it is required for you to do that. And then usually our name goes on the first line. Center your name and affiliation at the top of the page, and then provide complete contact information such as your telephone number, fax number if able, and also email addresses. Nowadays, it may also include your cell phone number if it is basically the main telephone number that you have. It is not required to have a fixed telephone number, such as because nowadays people uh, basically can move from one place to another, and then they basically mobile, and therefore to have a fixed telephone number included in your CV becomes optional because people will contact you through the cell phone anyways. And it's basically the main communication tools that you have at the moment. Okay, so this is an example of a first line on your CV. So, for example, it includes the name, Celia Matthew Elliott, and then the affiliation or the work that she worked at the moment, Department of Physics, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and the institution address, and then followed by the telephone numbers and the email. Or for example, for mine, the name Hari Mahardika, and then followed by the affiliation or the institution that I'm working for. Well, this is just an example because there are no Department of Physics anyway, because the formal institution that I belong to is the Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Science, but it's just for the sake of an example of the top of the city. Okay, this okay. After that, you write your names and your address and way of how you can communicate. The next item is to list our education and training experiences. So the title, so we could title the section education or educational background, and then we can list institution that we attend in chronological order. And each entry must include the institution name and location, and then the degree that we earn, and then the year we receive the degree, and also the field of study or the major field of study that we enrolled to or we graduated from. For example, here, so I guess for this example, Celia Matthews Elliott, she was having her Bachelor of Art in English from Michigan State University in 1971. And then in 1974, she got educational psychology, Master of Education from University of Illinois, Champaign. Okay, after that, we could list our employment history, and we could title the section employment or professional appointment or working history. List every institution where we work in reverse chronological order. So it's basically in reverse with the educational history. But nevertheless, this format is basically relates to the example that we saw earlier here. Okay, so if the educational background is written in chronological order from the past until the present, however, for the work history is written in the opposite. Is it okay for us to have another approach? For example, both have the same chronological order? Probably so. Yeah. So, and it also depends on the institution that we apply for. Sometimes they want to know the working history in a chronological order, but usually what we usually have in the CV, especially in the in the work history, they will see our current employment first, and then the past through the first time we got employed. Okay, so again, the list of every institution where we worked before is done in the reverse chronological order. And then each entry should include the organization name and location, and then the years that we worked there, and then the job title. And if the institution need information about the thing that we're working on, then we need also to add additional information about the achievement that we have while we work there. Okay, or what are the main responsibility that we have on that position, for example. Include every professional appointment since you completed your final academic degree or training. So for example, like this one, if today is 2022, then the employment list, the most recent one. So for example, here from 1999 until present, becomes the director of external affairs, department of physics, etc., and so on. And then the previous one in 1996 to 1999, the example that we have was an assistant to the head of the department of physics, University of Illinois, etc., and so on. Okay, so what about part-time jobs unrelated to physics? So here is, well, so this is when we are in the position where our internship or our part-time job is not related to the position that we are looking for. So this is, so for example, if we are applying for a certain position in a company, and our past experience, whether it's in working experience or internship or part-time job, have place of work that is not related to, for example, we are applying for an engineering position, then our past experience is not related to any engineering experience whatsoever. So here are the rules, okay, or as a suggestion that you may use. So include them, okay, include your part-time jobs, which is not related to the position that we are looking for, if you can tie them to your commitment to your education. For example, you flip burgers to earn money for school, etc., and so on. So it's basically tell them that you work on the part-time job for enroll yourself into the undergraduate, or to fund yourself, or to finance yourself, so that you could excel in your study, for example, and then show that they gave you an opportunity to practice leadership, communication, or other skill relevant to your future career. So this is one suggestion that also beneficial, is that if you are having a part-time or an internship that it's not related to engineering, for example. So in this case, in this example, we want to apply for a certain engineering position, but our past work experience or internship is not related to that, and that so the choices is actually two: whether you can omit that, you don't use that for good, or you may use them but with a little twist. So here are the twists that you can have. And by telling them that your past experience in the internship or in the part-time job is basically to fund yourself, or is basically to show them that you are able to work independently, or you can work in groups, or you able to have multiple jobs at the same time, which basically the thing that that is asked by the following institution that have that application. Okay. Okay, so after that, so after the working experience, we could also list honor and reward and professional association experience. Okay, for honor and reward. So, for example, during our student life, we are participating in a certain competition and we won, and then the competition itself, if it's related to the position that we are looking for. So, for example, it is related to the engineering position that we want to get, then you may write them in the CV and then describe them a little bit without too much information. So just a little bit about the achievement that we have from that award, for example, and then what are the position that we have from that competition, for example, and then showing them that is basically giving us the experience to work with other people, to have a group working environment, or able to design or produce something from limited source, etc., and so on. So you may adjust the thing that you want to mention in your CV that relates to the position that you're looking. So title of the, so in terms of honor and reward, you can write the title of the award, the entity that bestowed the award, or the institution that gave you the award, for example, like the Tech or from a certain company, etc. So on. And then the year it was given. For professional association, if you are a member, so for example, in physics, we have PSI, the the Physical Society of Indonesia, or for those who are enrolled in Earth Physics, we have a Himpunan Ahli Geofisika Indonesia, who also have student members. So if we are student member of those institutions that, and then we are actively participating in their activities, then we may need to include the list of participation of that association. Okay, if the professional association have rank, that we need to also include the rank information, and then years we have been associated with the organization. Okay, so these are the examples of how we write our association. Okay, so for example, in this case, the example enrolled in Pi Beta Kappa Society, and then Chancellor Award for Excellence, and then Outstanding Service Medal, and then a member of American Physical Society, and a member of American Association for the Advancement of Science, etc., and so on. And I guess in the list here, it is not required for you to have it in chronological order or in reverse chronological order, but it depends on the importance that that we think appropriate with the position that we're looking for. If we are applying for a teaching position, then we need also to include teaching experience. For example, in the first year of graduate school, we can already apply for scholarship, and then the scholarship is in form of teaching assistant, or in ITB, we usually have opportunity for students to apply for a grader assistant, or a lab assistant, or a tutorial assistant. Then we may also include them as our teaching experience. Thus, it is important to show that the graduate committee about our experience and ability in giving tutorial, laboratory demonstrator, or grade. So teaching experience usually required if we are want to apply for a graduate study position. Obviously, it is not for job application in an industry, but if you're looking for a job in the educational in education industry, or in an educational institution, for example, then we need to include this as our experience in the curriculum fitting. And what about in research position? Not so many research positions require us to improve the teaching experience because they're more solely focusing on research. However, if the research is done in a certain university, so for example, in ITB, I guess those who are applying for a research position in ITB nowadays, they also need to have a, or they may need to, or they are required to teach a certain credit in one study program. So listing a teaching experience will be beneficial if you are applying for a research position in ITB, but not always. But it is not always the case if you are applying for a research position in another institution. Okay. Now, okay. Then we could also list research interest and significant contribution. We need to keep the entry short, no more than 2 or 3 lines, and then restrict to primary interest and key contributions. And then select interest and contribution most closely related to the post project. So even though we are working on an engineering position, for example, then we need to know what is the main core work or the core activities of that company. If the core work is unrelated to the past research that we have, then we may need to make them relatable, okay, or we're not use them at all. Okay, we're not going to use them at all if it's not related. It is not that related with the proposed position. But if we manage somehow to look at the similarities, or we could somehow see the connection between our past research with the position that we are looking for, then we need to adjust that experience in accordance to the position that we propose. Okay, and then next is the research interest. When we are applying for a position in a graduate study, it is important to show your commitment by showing some sort of inclination toward a particular area of physics. So in this scenario, the graduate study that we want to pursue is a position in Department of Physics. It can be also in another field of studies. So for example, if we want to cross major from physics to communication, or from physics to let's say industrial engineering, or from physics to arts, or physics to language studies, or even from physics to engineering position. We still need, or we can also we need to show that we have that new commitment to the new position. However, don't be too specific in the problem, as you are still green and want to be open-minded, and if you have made some scientific contribution, or you are applying for a postdoctoral position, and it is important to mention your contribution. So depending on the degree, okay, itself, if it's master degree, then your basic knowledge on the undergraduate may, okay, you need to seek the relevant topic that you want to have. It's just like when you're selecting topic for scientific communication class, you are new to the problem, and then you are seeking new topic that you could present in the past. So in this case, it's also the same. So if we are if we are in the line, if we are applying the same major or the same research interest as our past experience, then it will be a big problem. But if we are going to cross major, or if we are moving from one discipline to another, then we need to show the one who is going to see our application that we have that commitment to look on the problem that they have based on our past experience, and we show that we have that interest in terms of the thing that we want to looking for. Okay, so for example, like this one, research interest is experimental biological physics, fluorescent microscopy, and spectroscopy. So it is written in keywords, okay, not using sentences. And then research contribution, for example, in this example, from the past work, he or she is working on observation of room temperature of novel single molecule dynamics, such as spectral jumps, as one, and then detection of single fluorescent molecules and energy transfer between a single donor acceptor pair. And then if we are applying for a research position or a graduate study position, sometimes we also need to include our list of publication. Provide complete bibliographic citation for a publication. It includes author's name, title of paper or book, and then journal title, if a book, publisher, and city were published, and inclusive page numbers. If we don't have a list of publication that is published in a paper, or sorry, in a journal or in a conference proceeding, we may also include our final project book or our scriptsy book as our publication. Okay, here are an example on how we write the list of publication. And it is written in chronological order, not in reverse chronological order. And then if we have past experience in presenting in front of an annual meeting or in front of a big seminar, not in scientific communication class, obviously. If you have that experience, then you may include them here. Okay, so if we have the experience in writing a conference paper, for example, then we may need to write them also in the list of presentation if it's being presented in oral or in poster presentation, or we may also include them here in the list of publication. Okay, here are the example on how we write the invited talks that we have. Again, it is written in chronological order. Okay, so what about cases taken? Okay, if the institution that we apply for require us to write them, then we need to write them. Okay, but usually we don't need to write them anyways because it makes our CV longer. Okay, so do not provide a canonical list of classes you've sat through. If you list classes, explain what you learned, for example, the technique or theory, and how the class has prepared you to be successful in the proposed work. Okay, so again, this need to be taken in consideration in terms of the whether the institution is asked you to list all of the classes that you take in the previous study or not. If it's not, then you don't need to write them anyway. Okay, use your CV to supplement the proposal or cover letter. The technical narrative of a proposal or your statement of purpose should include a discussion of your qualification for the work. We can use our CV to provide additional information about yourself, which includes our honor and awards, related experience, appointment, demonstrated success in other endeavor, and special skills. Okay, next. We could select information to emphasize relevant experience and prior success. If we include research interest, we need to put the topic of the proposed project list. And then if we include contribution, we need to emphasize those most closely related to the proposed work, and then select publication, most closely related to the proposed work, and emphasis classes most closely related to the proposed work itself. Okay, here, things that we not include in a CV, which is basically a personal information, unless it is required. Okay, unless it is required by the institution, then we need to provide them. But if not, then we don't need to provide them. So for example, date of birth, age, citizenship, place of birth, marital status, number of children and dependents, race or ethnic category, health status, blood type, for example, or MBTI scores or IQ scores or IELTS scores, TOEFL scores, etc. and so on. Okay. Okay. Do not one. Okay. Okay. Here, the suggestion. Also, it is advisable for you or advisable for us not to use templates that is given in the Microsoft Words. Okay, it is better for us to design ourselves because one of the recommendation that that a HR, Human Resource Department, asks us to do is that it is required for us as a applicants to not use the same template for one institution to another. So we don't use the same information, okay, for one company to another company that we applied for, because we need to adjust them. We need to make modification so that it will match the thing that they require. Okay, so make sure that we're not sending the same CV throughout the list of company that we apply for, and therefore not to use a given template if it's possible. Okay, after we talk about CV, we now moving on to statement of purpose. So statement of purpose is also a form of telling us about our expertise, about our experience, etc., and so on. However, the approach is different. Now, the approach of statement of purpose is that telling the future employee, the future institution that we apply for knew about our aspiration. What is our dream? What is our aims or goals while working, if we are enrolled in that particular position. So for example, if we are applying for a graduate study in physics, for example, or in geophysics in particular, I have the dream to working on a time-lapse geophysical method applied in mining, for example. That would be a good topic for us to be mentioned in the statement of purpose. Okay, so here our objective in writing a statement of purpose is to convince the admission committee that the money that going to invest in us will be money well spent, or in other words, if we are applying for a graduate study, it means that if we able to enroll in that position, or in master degree, in master studies, or in doctoral study, we will have, or we will give major impact on the institution due to our research. Okay, because, and here in this example, it's basically tools for the institution to make sure that we are the right persons to be hired, or the right person to be enrolled to their program. And therefore, we need to have the requisite skill, experience, and desire to success. And then we are excited about the job itself. And then we have discipline and persistence when thing is not in our control later on. Okay, a statement of purpose should emphasize your research goal. Most community base their decision on their assessment in our intellectual horsepower, such as our GPA and GRE score, and research literacy. Okay, for example, research literacy in terms of the position that we are going to apply. Okay, use our statement of purpose and your reference letter to make the case for your promising future as a researcher or as any role that we are want to have from the future position. And then in making the statement of purpose, we can do it by asking ourselves questions. What have I learned in the last 4 years about physics, about myself? Or if we are coming from another discipline, what is our experience, or what have we learned from that major, for example, etc. And so on. And then what do I enjoy doing? And then what do I do well? What are my expectations, my dreams? And then how can I show that I finished what I start? And then how I show what I'm creative on? And then how can I show that I have an aptitude for physics, for engineering, for material science, for music, or for literature, etc. And so on. So it depends on the institution that we're applying for. And then how can I show that I am different from everybody else and who applying to this department? Okay. How can I show that I am different from everybody else who are also applying to that particular department for that position? What is our differentiation? What is the selling point of ourselves that are different with other applicants? That we could mention that. Okay, clearly state your short and long-term goal. Clearly state your short and long-term career goals. For example, like this one, a quote from Marilyn Monroe that I don't want to make money, I just want to be wonderful. And we could adjust that statement in terms of our future position. Okay, so how will studying physics at this particular department prepare you to achieve those goals? How will studying geophysics at this particular institution prepare you to achieve those goals? So we need to relate the career goal with applying for that certain position. Okay, again, one size does not fit all. Do not use the same template for all of the position that we apply for. Okay, show that we bother to learn something about. Show that we've bothered to learn something about the department. Mention specific faculty member or research project in which you are interested. If the faculty member has or the department itself has unique facilities, show you are new about them and how learning to use them will prepare you to achieve your overall goals. And then we need also to describe our area of interest, not too broad, but not too specific as well. And the example like this one, okay? And relate them to your experience and to the department that we are looking for. And then we need also to give specific reason why we are interested in particular research area and why we have chosen this particular university to apply for. Okay. Don't write anything about physics or research that you do not truly understand. So make sure that we write something that is related to us so much in our past experience, but also show that willingness to learn new things from based on the past experience that we have. Okay, be selective about personal details. And statement of purpose is a sales document, not our memoir. The admission committee probably doesn't really care about our first grade science project, so make sure that we have appropriate information. Okay. Okay, the computer is getting crazy at the moment. Okay, I think we are on the last 10 minutes of our 10 minutes of our lecture period now. So I just want to close. You could see the the given materials later on that I've prepared on the EduNext website. Okay. Okay, here in week 13, in looking at the relevant materials in terms of writing CV and statement of purpose. And then you don't need to submit this, okay? I think I don't need you to submit a CV or abstract, because the list of presenters that going to present in the 15-minute presentation will be determined by me. The schedule itself. So, okay, so after this, on on April the 15th, 12, 15, 14, or April the 14th, we're going to begin the full 15-minute presentation. So be ready to have your PPT, and then if there are